What are you doing in my swamp?
Hello everybody, this is Overboy, and I'm going to be doing my review for the 2002 movie, Spider-Man. This movie is directed by Sam Raimi and written by David Koepp, and in this movie, Peter Parker, played by Tobey Maguire, is a nerd. He gets bullied and is kind of a misfit and stuff. He has one friend in Harry Osborn, and one day on a field trip, he gets bit by this radioactive spider that gives him superpowers where he becomes Spider-Man. After the death of his Uncle Ben, he decides to become a full-time superhero and becomes Spider-Man, and he has to face off against his arch nemesis, the Green Goblin, played by Willem Dafoe. I absolutely love this movie. I've talked about it a few times on my channel before. I think I reviewed it a couple years ago. I don't remember if I still have that video up or not because the quality just wasn't very good on that video. This is one of the superhero movies that really got me into the superhero genre. I'd seen a few before, and I loved X-Men when it first came out and everything. It was kind of my introduction to Marvel, but this one is the one that really got me interested in Marvel, if that makes sense. And I didn't really know a lot about Spider-Man before seeing this movie either. I'd seen a couple episodes of the animated series, but I never really got super into Spider-Man until this movie came out. And ever since then, I've been a huge Spider-Man fan, and I just absolutely love this movie. And it's a blast from start to finish. It never has a slow spot in here. Like for an origin story movie, it doesn't get boring at all to me. I'm like invested in the characters throughout the whole movie. Sam Raimi has this really distinct style in his directing that just fits this movie perfectly, and he does a really great job with it. The cast in here, I think, are all perfect. Tobey Maguire is easily my favorite Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I just absolutely love him in this movie, and nothing against Tom Holland, I love him too, but Tobey Maguire just, he's great in the role. I absolutely love him in here. And then you got Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn, and he's amazing in this movie too. He's part of what makes this movie so good. Like, his performance is really great, and he doesn't really get as much credit as he deserves, because he's really great in here. Especially, there's this one scene in the movie where like Norman and the Goblin are having this conversation, and you see the Goblin side in this mirror and stuff, and just the acting in that scene is powerful. It gives me chills every time I watch it. Like, it just really shows how great of an actor Willem Dafoe is and everything. But he's great throughout the whole movie and everything. I loved him in this movie, and of course, James Franco is Harry Osborn. I think he's pretty good in here. He doesn't have a lot to do except just be mopey and stuff about and trying to impress his father and stuff and everything. But I think he's good as Harry. I always liked him, and I think he has good chemistry with Tobey Maguire and the rest of the cast. Like, all of the cast have great chemistry together, and Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane, I think, is really good too. I think she fits the role really well, although I'm not a huge fan of Mary Jane because of the way she's written, more in the sequels than this one. She's fine in this one. She don't get on my nerves as bad, but I don't really like the way she kind of plays with Peter's mind and stuff a little bit. But she's dating Harry, and I kind of feel bad for Harry in this movie because you can see that her and Peter flirting throughout the movie, even though Peter's trying not to flirt with her because he knows she's Harry's girl and stuff. But she gets worse as the series goes on though, so this movie's not really that bad compared to how Mary Jane is handled in the next two movies. But I think Kirsten Dunst does a great job playing her though. And Rosemary Harris as Aunt May, I just absolutely loved her as Aunt May. She's probably my favorite out of all of them. And Cliff Robertson as Uncle Ben is perfect too. I think they are just perfectly cast in this role. Two of the best castings in this movie, and they don't really do a whole lot. I mean, Uncle Ben is pretty much there to die and be Peter's motivation to becoming Spider-Man, and Aunt May, she's there as a emotional support to Peter and his aunt and stuff, but they don't really do a lot in this movie. But every time they're on screen, they just are really great in here and everything. And part of it also is, some reason they remind me of my grandparents. The way they talk to each other and stuff, it reminded me of my grandparents and stuff. Even as a kid, it reminded me of them. I don't know what it is, but I thought that was really cool too. And then of course you got Johanna Jameson, played by J.K. Simmons. I almost forgot his name for a minute. He's absolutely perfect too. Like, he's so perfect that they brought him back in the MCU and stuff, because you just can't replace him as him. He's just perfect casting, and I loved him in it, in this movie. Even though I think Jameson is kind of a jerk and stuff, there's also something about him that I like and everything. And I love, like, the scene when the Goblin attacks and stuff, and like the Goblin's trying to get information about who gave him the picture of Spider-Man. He doesn't tell him who it is. It shows that even though he acts like this big tough guy, he does have morals and stuff, and he doesn't believe in putting other people in danger and stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool too. And I really love Jameson in these movies and stuff, and J.K. Simmons is just perfect in the role. But all of the cast are really great in here, and I love, like, the camera work too. Like, they created this special camera. I think they called it Spidey Cam or something, where the camera's zooming through New York when he's swinging and stuff. I love the scenes of when they're swinging in New York and stuff. It's just really awesome scenes. And there's some where the CGI looks really bad on Spider-Man when he's swinging, but the movie came out almost 20 years ago, so I don't really care. Back then, it didn't really look that bad to me. And the only reason I noticed it a lot more this time is I watched half of the movie on Blu-ray, because I had gotten it on Blu-ray recently, and fortunately the Blu-ray doesn't work all the way though. So I watched half of it on Blu-ray and then the rest on my DVD, and I noticed that the CGI doesn't look near as bad on the DVD as it does the Blu-ray when it's more crystal clear, if that makes sense. But I think the visuals hold up though. I mean, compared to other movies, like you watch The Mummy Returns, the CGI in that still looks horrible. It looked horrible when it came out, and it looks even more dated and worse now. And I don't think that this one, the CGI, looks any worse than stuff you'd see in the MCU. I mean, the stuff in Eternals look just as bad, if not worse, than the CGI in this movie and everything. And Sam Raimi tries to go practical as much as he can. There's very little CGI and everything. I noticed like most of the CGI is just when Spider-Man is swinging, really, is the most parts, or like if when stuff is falling around him, and like the scene when when they're on the bridge and stuff, and you can see the stuff falling, you can kind of see CGI, and that's a little bit too in the fight with Goblin. But most of it looks fine and everything. And the score in here, man, Danny Elfman's score is just absolutely amazing. One of the best superhero movie scores of all time. Danny Elfman is really great at doing superhero movie scores, because he did a great job with this one and the Batman scores, and he did the score for Hulk from 2003, which is a pretty underrated movie too, and I think his score for that was really great. But his score for the two Spider-Man movies that he did they're fire. They're excellent scores. And you got the song in here from Chad Kroeger, from Nickelback. He does the song Hero that plays over in the credits. I absolutely love that song. Every time I watch the movie, I have to watch the music video on the DVD, because it's kind of a tradition for me. Anytime I watch the movie, I've watched that video because I love that song and everything. And it's just a really, really great movie. One of my favorite comic book movies of all time. It's actually probably it is in my top 2. Of course, most people who know me know what my number 1 is, but yeah, I absolutely love this movie, and it is a blast from start to finish. And like I said, there's not much else I could say about it. It's just a really, really great time, and it is like pure nostalgia for me. Every time I watch it, it takes me back to 2002 and everything, when I was 10 years old, perfect age for when this movie came out and everything. But it really has a great story, and the characters are so well written. Like that's something that, if I had to complain anything about Tom Holland's Spider-Man, is they took all of the stuff out of Spider-Man's story to fit him in with the Avengers, and they didn't do any origin stories on him or anything. And to me, it kind of hurt the character, because it took like his motivations and all that away. And in the MCU, he just wants to impress Tony Stark and be like him and stuff. And nothing against that. I love Tony Stark and I love Spider-Man. I'm glad they did something different, but at the same time, I feel like this movie is like, if you're wanting a good origin story of Spider-Man, this is the perfect one to go to. And I can't wait to see what they do with No Way Home, bringing in Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin and stuff. So I'm curious to see if Tobey Maguire pops up in there. If he does, that's going to be awesome and everything. But I love this movie, and just because I like Tobey more doesn't mean I don't like Tom Holland, because I think he's great as Spider-Man too. This is just my Spider-Man. I mean, he's the one that I grew up with. 20 years from now, all these kids are going to be the same way on Tom Holland. If there's a new Spider-Man, they're going to be the same way on Tom Holland as I am Tobey Maguire. But I absolutely love this one, and have no hate against Tom Holland at all. But this is just a perfect example of how to do a great Spider-Man movie and everything. So I say I'd give it a 10 out of 10. It's just, to me, it's a perfect movie. There's not really anything that I can say that I dislike about the movie very much, except for, like I said, some of the stuff with Mary Jane, and everything. But that's really my only big gripe on here, and that's not even really that big of a gripe, because, like I said, she's not as bad in this movie as she is some of the other ones. It was a great introduction to these characters in this world and everything. We'll be reviewing Spider-Man 2 next week. I'm gonna start doing Marvel Mondays, where each Monday I review a different Marvel movie, because I have a crap load of Marvel movies that I've never reviewed on this channel. So I'm planning on just making that a weekly thing where I go through them and stuff. And a lot of them are ones that I've had for a long time that I haven't watched in a long time, so I want to revisit them anyway. And some that I've gotten over the last few months that I haven't got around to watching, I need to watch anyway. So I'm going to start doing that, do a weekly thing where it's Marvel Mondays. But anyway, let me know in the comments what you think of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man from 2002. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Did you grow up with it? Are you one of the younger ones that just saw it here recently and after it came out and stuff? Like, this movie was revolutionary when it came out, but I know a lot of people say it's cheesy and dated, and it is cheesy, but that's part of what I love about it too. And like, the dialogue in here has some really, really corny dialogue. All three Raimi movies do, but this one and 3 especially have some of the corniest dialogue, but that to me, it just helps bring the charm in here and stuff, and it fits with Raimi's style too. But let me know in the comments what you think of this movie, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good day, everybody.